data can drive better employee happiness and productivity? Really? This is Mission Ignite, no bullshit business. Hi, welcome to Mission Ignite. Here we uncover the no bullshit stories from successful individuals and ignite your dream to success. Our guest today, Dorothy, she's the co-founder and CEO of EngageRocket, a company that leverages data to help organizations build better workplaces. With a passion for enhancing employee experience and a vision to transform the way companies understand and interact with their teams, Dorothy has been at the forefront of driving change in this critical domain. She is also a entrepreneur and a Down syndrome advocate. Coming from a family of entrepreneurs, Dorothy is here to share her stories from the early days of EngageRocket through the challenges she encountered. She will also offer us invaluable insights and advice for aspiring entrepreneurs, making this an episode you don't want to miss. Welcoming Dorothy!
Yeah, thanks for having me. Very happy to be here.
It's our pleasure. Why don't you tell our audience who you are and what you're doing?
Sure. So my name is Dorothy and I'm the co-founder and CEO of EngageRocket. So EngageRocket is a HR technology company founded right here in Singapore.
Oh, wow.
And what we do is we help organizations essentially improve their employee experience at work. So to drive outcomes such as better employee retention, better employee performance. And in layman's term, we essentially help you enjoy your work more and create a better workplace so that you will be more motivated to stay with your organization longer and also to perform better.
So explain to me, how does this whole thing work? Because I think not many people will understand that aspect of things. They'll know that, I go to work, I just work, right?
Yeah.
How does it make me happy?
So I think this is an interesting space, right? Because what EngageRocket does is essentially an intersection between HR, technology, and data. So what we do is essentially we pull out a lot of what we call soft data, soft people data. We ask you things like what motivates you at work? Are you receiving enough recognition? What we're trying to get at is sorry, let me backtrack that. What we're trying to get at is essentially how do we intrinsically motivate you so that you will wake up in the morning and you're excited to go to work. Right? The things that ultimately drive business success is if my employees are willing to go the extra mile. If my employees think about work on the weekend without thinking that, I'm working overtime, right? If a competitor come in and offer me 20% a pay raise, I'll think twice and actually maybe I don't want to go because
you're happy where you are.
Because I'm happy where I am, right? And I go above and beyond. I won't calculate things like, this is not my job. I don't want to do it. I'm willing to support my teammates. So all these, while it feels very intangible, it's a driving force behind a lot of success for organization. And it's also things like that you count on during, challenging periods, right? Consider COVID that has just passed, right? If everybody's like, I'm not happy at work, then suddenly you're working from home. Okay, I don't work, right? But if you are accountable, if you believe in the mission of your company, if you want to support your teammates, you will show up. Right. So essentially what EngageRocket does is we try to identify data like this and to inform organizations, be it HR, your CEO, your leaders, or even people managers, how best can they manage their talent?
I see.
And how best can they motivate them so that they can extract the most out of their human resource?
Sounds amazing because I think not many people who went to work will actually know about that unless you're in the HR field. But that said, I have a very curious question.
Yeah.
Because whatever you mentioned sounds like it's meant for big organization, right? What about the small ones, or are they all the same?
I always say this, right? That it doesn't matter the size of the organization. We can work with any organization, be it the size, what industry you're from. The one key factor is that we can only work with organization that genuinely cares about their people.
Right. So that's a baseline.
That is the baseline.
Yeah.
If you care about your people, the smallest client that we have has only, 20 staff? And yet they can still use us.
Right.
So as long as you care about your people, you're concerned about what motivates them, how do you create a better environment for them to thrive, we can definitely work with you. Yes, when it's larger, when the organization is larger, definitely there is more value, because if you're manning a, say, 10,000, 100,000 employee size organization, it's very hard for you to every day go and, hey, how are you doing? What motivates you? Hey, how are you doing? It's very hard to do that. So that's where I think the technology comes in, because it's very powerful. It's able to help you deliver impact at scale. It's able to extract all this data in real time and essentially remove all the manual intervention that's needed to churn or analyze the data.
Right. So I'm very curious, what caused the inspiration to create EngageRocket?
Oh, so there's multiple factors, I would say. So the original motivation I have to step into the world of business actually comes from my family.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes. So my dad is a businessman. My mom was in business. My grandfather was in business. A lot of my uncles are businessmen.
So naturally, you just
cousins,
hop on.
a lot. Actually, I think more of them are in business than they are not.
Okay.
And so I think what this means, I think it's less about genetics, but more from the fact that I grew up in an environment where entrepreneurship or business talk was very normal, right? It was commonplace, during dinner or family gathering, you just hear a lot of how they talk about opportunities and business ideas and how to solve this problem and that problem. And what this meant for me is, growing up, I always knew that starting up a business is a very real opportunity for me. Like, it's a very real career path. It wasn't something that's, I don't really know what it's about. It sounds, like this great idea, but no clue how to get started. I think I had a good idea of what it's like. And I think so this part I think is a bit of a genes thing. I've always watched my dad being very sensitive to opportunities.
Right.
So he's always very fascinated about opportunities. And growing up, I always see him, implementing different business ideas. There was one time when I was in secondary school, and all of a sudden he was like, so over the weekend, if you guys are free, go to I rented a booth at Junction 8. We're going to go sell mooncakes.
Oh, really? That's
so random, right?
Yeah.
So his background and his business has always in paper and pulp in a very traditional business, but he has sold mooncakes, he has sold kiwi juice, he has sold diapers. It's just very random. And I remember that summer, or that period of time, I would go to Junction 8. I think this was like 20 plus years ago, right? So basically, he struck a deal, somehow managed to convince one very popular bakery in Hong Kong to give him exclusive distribution rights of mooncakes. Wow. So he had bought a shipment of mooncakes. I think it's in the thousands of boxes to Singapore and to sell during that one season of the Mooncake Festival.
But it's a very profitable season. Very profitable.
So I didn't know. And so that actually makes him a really good businessman, because later on, when I was older, I realized he actually made a pretty good profit on that one season of Mooncake Festival. And I was probably his best sales girl in that booth at Junction 8. And I only got $50 from it. So that tells you.
It's the daughter, come on.
So that tells you what a good businessman he was. I was super happy with the $50, right, as a young teenager. But I think because of that, I sort of inherited a bit of that opportunistic mindset. So that's one aspect of how I got started. And the other aspect is after graduation, I didn't jump into business straight away. I had a short stint in banking, and then I moved into HR consulting.
So you were in banking?
I was in banking. Then I moved,
consulting.
Yes.
That's an interesting jump.
I know. I mean, at that point of time, I just thought to myself, while I have not stayed in something for too long, let me try many different things first before I, build my career in it. So then I switched to HR consulting, and I think it was there that I discovered really my interest in understanding human behaviors at work. And it was also where I met my co-founder, right? So I think during that 5 years where we're leading the regional business was also where we identified the gap that EngageRocket solves today. While the consulting model is good in solving HR problem, the issue with it is the scalability, right? Because consulting at the end of the day is still very much a human-to-human method of solving problems, right? So where we felt was really missing is, how do we extract data and enable data in real time? And we felt that the piece that was missing was technology.
Right.
So after 5 years of, servicing Fortune 500 companies, my co-founder and I basically decided to leave and start EngageRocket. And yeah, it's been 8 years since we started.
It's an amazing journey, I'm sure.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I'm very curious now, because you mentioned that, it's 8 years ago, and then, you have many experience that built up your whole career, right? Where EngageRocket is today, right? But how do you actually even start identifying the need for tech HR? Because I think HR, like what you mentioned, right? It's a very humane thing.
Yes.
Right? To input analysis in, data in, right? It's something that's quite unheard of.
Yes.
What gave the inspiration?
So one of the biggest projects that we would use to take on in HR consulting is running employee engagement surveys
Okay.
for our clients, right? And they would use to pay us a lot of money to run surveys. And I think the part that frustrated my co-founder and I the most is that you're running all this employee engagement survey, you're asking them about how they feel. Right? It's sentiment related data. But by the time that the survey has closed and the HR consultants has gone into a black box and churn all the data and analysis and come back to present to the organization, it usually starts with the top first. Right? You will present to the, C-suite, the board, and then the results get slowly trickled downwards to the people managers. Now, what you need to know is that employee engagement is something that is intrinsically very much driven by the direct manager.
Yes.
Our 70%, there's a statistic, right? 70% of our engagement at work is actually influenced by who we report to and not HR or the C-suite. And I'm sure you heard of the saying.
There's no engagement there.
Correct. And I'm sure you heard of the saying that people don't leave companies, right?
They leave because of the bosses.
They leave bad bosses.
Yeah.
But by the time that the people leaders would have gotten a report card of, how their employees were feeling from the employee engagement result, you're talking about months later. So I vividly remember the experience in HR consulting where they would pay us to, action plan with some of these leaders, and they would push the report card back to us and said, no use. We're like, oh, what do you mean no use? Like, we can explain the data to you. And they're like, well, the top talents that I wanted to retain, first of all, they're not here anymore.
Oh, goodness.
And then second, I went back to talk to my guys about the result, and they told me that I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast last week. And you're telling me about a survey I've done months ago, right? I don't feel the same anymore.
Right.
So I think one of the first thing we did was with EngageRocket, the first problem that we tried to solve was how do we deliver these results in real time to the people that matters.
Right.
So the first tech that we built in EngageRocket was that we remove all the, labor cumbersome processes in running a survey. And once the survey is closed, immediately all people managers, regardless of where you are in the organization, will receive results of how your team is doing with confidentiality protected.
So walk me through. So let's say I'm a staff today, right? This survey came to me. I'll fill out the questions. The one that is done, it will go straight to my manager. Is that right?
Pretty much, yes. Once you're done, your manager receive results of the entire team.
And
so
not
it won't
just my...
It won't say what you said and what he said. It will just say, okay, as a team, it looks like, the team is struggling in these areas. As a team, it looks like they're happy with these areas. And it looks like from the last time you've done this areas improve and this areas the scores has dropped. And what the platform also does actually is to prompt the manager, hey, for these areas that needs to improve, here are some action suggestions on what you can do with your...
so there's recommendations as well.
There's action recommendation as well. Because what we understand that actually a lot of managers out there, right, when you lead a team of people, it's not that you don't care about them, right? And it's not that you don't want to do you don't want to do anything to motivate them. It's just sometimes you don't know what to do.
Yes.
Right? So we tell them exactly, do this, do this, do this, and it is in this area that your team needs the most support on.
Right. But for EngageRocket, right, that will just stops there, right? It doesn't go any further, or does it? Or you guys have like coaching, mentoring courses as well? Okay,
so we don't have coaching and mentoring, but I think what have been very interesting is the evolution of listening strategies that organizations has been applying.
Okay.
So I talked about employee engagement survey, but it's actually a very traditional it's more of a traditional method towards employee listening. I think today we really see it evolving, right? So the thing with if I launch an annual employee engagement survey, it's once a year.
Yes.
I come and ask you how you're doing, right? And
for EngageRocket, what's the recommended frequency?
it depends on the organization, but we definitely see a trend towards more continuous type of listening. The thing is, when you're asked so infrequently, a couple of things happen, right? One is that you're really just taking a snapshot in time.
Yes.
Second, because you only got one opportunity in once a year or once in 2 years, you cram a lot of questions in that single survey. So it makes it super long.
Yeah.
So what we have seen in the last, I would say 5-6 years, it's company moving more and more towards like pulse survey. So instead of asking you just once a year, and it's a very big, comprehensive, long set of questions for you to answer.
Okay.
Organizations have been breaking it down into more mini pulses, so more regular rhythm, like once a quarter. We've worked with organizations that have done it once a month.
Oh, wow.
And it has also evolved beyond the topic of employee engagement. I think it's been so interesting because now we are also looking at an organization who is curious to understand, hey, how is the experience like at different juncture on the employee journey, right? Let me look at how your experience has been on your 30th day, 60th day.
So there's a chart for
so you can actually see, how about your new joiners? How have they been doing in their first 1 year, right? What are the reasons why they join you? Do they have the same reasons? What motivates them? Is it the same as someone who has been with the organization 10 years?
Yeah.
Right? Can you catch any early flight risks? Because organizations today know that young people itchy backside, right?
Maybe don't
want to say so long, right?
Yes,
but the problem is there's recruitment costs, there is ramp-up costs, there's training costs. So if you don't retain the employee for at least a certain amount of time, it's actually a loss to the company.
Yes.
The ROI is not recouped, right? So understanding the onboarding experience also help you set people up for success and to intervene before it's too late. And the same goes with like exit interviews, return from long leave, work anniversary. There's just a lot of different use cases now that makes the data that we collect a lot more robust.
So, I mean, this podcast is no bullshit business, right? I'm going to ask a very sensitive question.
Yeah, sure.
Right? That is, when we give out such surveys to employee, we always like to give it after the bonus period, after the promotion period, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Is it the same, or is it something that is encouraged?
It happens. It's not encouraged. It happens. It happens. Especially with the infrequent surveys. Organizations sometimes do want to time it. In a lot of ways, unfortunately, because these numbers are often reported upwards.
Yes.
It's reported to board. For listed companies, it's on the annual report.
Yeah.
Inevitably, organization will want to make sure that the numbers look good. And so, yes, sometimes there's timing. And that's why I think the more advanced or futuristic companies has evolved it towards more continuous listening. Because if it's continuous, then you kind of remove the burden of needing to time it very well, right?
Yeah.
If I'm doing it every quarter, then understand that there might be seasonality influences on the data itself, but still, I have 4 opportunities throughout the year to collect data versus that one time, then I need to make sure that I definitely need to time that one time very well.
Right.
Yeah.
So now back to EngageRocket. When you first started out a company, I'm sure many of the HR companies, they are unaware of you, or they are not even keen to do such surveys. How do you get your first few clients?
Yeah, I think we are very lucky in a way that because we came from HR consulting, people in the industry kind of already know us.
Right.
My co-founder and I were also in the regional leadership team. So he especially had like a network of clients that were familiar with him.
Okay.
So from a credibility standpoint, I think because we came from the field, we were automatically given that credibility. Okay, these people know what they're talking about. Yeah. And I'll be very honest, when I was younger, I was also given this advice from a businessman, right? He said that, a lot of people want to go into business, right? But having a good idea, like, I want to start a cafe, or, I want to start a blog shop or whatever it is. An idea is not enough. For you to start a sustainable business or credible business, you need to come with an edge or an advantage. So be it you have domain knowledge that other people don't have, or you have access to markets that other people don't have, or you have connections, privileged connections that other people don't have. You need to have an edge, right? So I think for my co-founder and I, because we have very deep domain knowledge in the HR space,
Yeah.
right? Not only because our own credibility being in the space itself, people are like, okay, you know your stuff, but the problem that we were solving resonated a lot with our early customers. And I remember the very first customer that we had, we didn't even have a product.
So what are you going with?
Yes, we didn't even have a product. We convinced him of the power of real-time data,
Okay.
right? Being able to understand how your teams are doing in real time. And he was a distributor of audio systems. So he had multiple shop fronts, right?
Right.
And with retail, attrition rate is not,
It's
can
quite
be
high, yes.
Can be quite high. And with retail also, if your staff are disengaged, will they give good customer service? Will they, you don't
your
buy...
branding will be
Yeah lah, don't
tarnished.
buy lah. You
Yeah.
know? But then, wow, if I'm very engaged at work and like, I'm happy with this company, I'll be more motivated
That's
to
right.
sell better,
That's
right? So he was quite convinced with this real-time idea. So he was our very first customer, and I remember we gave him a very privileged price or a very favorable price. But
It's first customer after all.
yes, but because we didn't have a product, what we did was the survey engine was a free survey tool.
Okay.
And the real-time delivery of the report was me and my co-founder literally standing behind our laptops, close the survey, download the data, pop it into Excel in a pre-prepared template,
Right.
populated all the formulas, right? Extracted all the key metrics,
Wow.
plug it into a PowerPoint that I pre-prepared into like a report format,
Yes.
quickly PDF it, and then email it to my client to pretend that it's real. To real time. Yes. I think that was an important lesson for us in the entrepreneurship journey.
Yes.
Also, we needed to know that people will pay for our products.
Yeah.
Before we actually built it. I mean, on the side, we were already starting to invest into a team to build it, but it was a very good validation. The thing is, throughout the years, we have launched a couple of new products, right? I mean, that was like our first product, but see, when you go to your friends, family, or even customers and you tell them, I have this idea, this is the product I want to build, people normally will tell you good things, right?
Yeah.
People are like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. Then you will ask them, will you buy? Then
They will hesitate. Maybe
yeah,
not.
actually, no, they will hesitate and maybe they're like, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I can see merits in it. Yeah, I think if budget allows, I'll probably do it.
Uh-huh.
If your ears are, not, if you cannot filter well, you're like, validated already.
Correct.
You know, wow, people, 9 out of 10 of
They
the
say
interviews
yes,
are,
it's
they
good.
said yes,
Yeah.
they said good. But it's a very different dynamics when you say, okay, take out your checkbook and sign a check.
Right.
Or here's the contract, sign the contract, and then I'll bill you.
Yeah.
That's a very different story altogether.
Yeah.
When they're willing to do that, right? We're willing to sign a contract and actually transfer money to you, that's when you know you hit jackpot, right? That's when you know, okay,
This is a real thing.
I have a real problem that I'm solving. So I think that validation of making sure that there's a contract signed and there's, money collected,
Yes.
it's a very important part to validate products.
I see. Right. So when you first started off, I mean, you mentioned that, you had nothing, you did an Excel sheet. How long thereafter when the real first engine started off, the real first product came out?
It wasn't very long. I think once we, the good thing is that when we started EngageRocket, we very quickly already knew what problem we wanted to solve because we came from the space, right? So I think within like 2-3 months, we had our MVP out. So our second customer was already using our MVP. So it was only that first customer who experienced that.
Yeah, that's quite smooth. Wow.
That very cui.
It has to start
man-made
somewhere.
product.
Yeah.
Yes. I wasn't okay. So the MVP also not great lah. I mean, it was a very rough version of what the platform is today, right? But I also know that, and this is something that I truly believe in. If you're not embarrassed by the product that you launch, you probably launch it too late. You have to be embarrassed by it because real customer feedback is so valuable, right? I would rather throw an unfinished product out there and start getting real feedback by people who are using it that will actually inform me how to improve it than I try to improve it myself based on assumptions and think that is good enough, then I launch it.
Although you're solving the customer's problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So the saying that if you're not embarrassed by it, it's too late. It's I think it rings true.
Right. So other than that, what are the challenges or roadblocks, that EngageRocket faced, or rather you yourself faced?
I think that's a very difficult question to ask because I feel like I face roadblocks every day. I think the the privilege of being a founder or co-founder or any leader in any organizations is that it's only the very big, unsolvable, difficult problems that gets rolled into you. Because if your team can solve it, they probably would have done that already. If you have built a good team and you hire good people, if it's a problem they can solve, it won't come to you, right? So the problems that get surfaced to me are usually, it's like when I hear it, I'm like, okay, I need some time to think about this. Get back to you. So I do think there's a lot, but I think how well you have built a team and what culture you have introduced to your organization will then inform how well you will be able to face all these setbacks or challenges. So I'll give you an example, right? A couple of years into our entrepreneurship journey, we realized that our product was innovating very slowly.
Right.
So one of the key things that EngageRocket prides ourselves in is our ability to really listen to customer feedback. We are very customer centric, and we pride ourselves to be able to innovate and keep improving our product continuously.
Right.
But it has gotten to a point where, why so slow? Everything that we wanted to improve on or everything that we wanted to innovate on was moving at not
a pace that you wanted.
Not a pace that we need it to be, right? To continue to stay competitive, to continue to evolve and service our clients better and better and better. And also trends are always evolving, right? I mean, Gen AI disrupted the industry just 2 years ago. So at that point, I think we reached a critical juncture where should we continue to invest on our existing product, which has kind of grown with us since the MVP that we've launched, right? Or do we rebuild something from scratch?
Wow, so that's quite serious to rebuild something from scratch.
Correct. And this, you're talking about like years of product development into our existing product. And that was a very difficult decision to make because you're not only talking about rebuilding everything from scratch. Like, how about this baby that we've been pouring our heart and soul into for the last few years? And then second of all, it's about resources, right? So we have to man up an entire team, a separate team, to rebuild it from scratch while maintaining our existing product that customers were on. But that also turned out, it was one of the scariest decisions that we've made, but it also turned out to be one of our biggest wins. Why? Because the new product, not only were we able to eliminate all our legacy issues. I think if you have built any tech product, you know that bugs or whatever, it comes with how you built it from beginning, right?
Like the whole framework, the skeletons and all.
So we are able to redesign our entire architecture to enable it to really scale with our business. Be able to, a lot of the pages or features that we rebuilt, we are able to then include a lot of the feedbacks that we've received, like, this feature is great, but it'll be even better if you had this button here, or if you have this feature here.
It's always the additional frills that we're looking at.
Exactly. So we were able to incorporate all these improvements, and the product ultimately became not just better suited for our future needs, but we were able to innovate on it a lot faster because then we removed all the legacy issues that we were facing. But at that point of time, it was very scary because rebuild and it's like cost, resources, time, migration of our customers.
Do you know the success rate is going to be there?
If it fails, I rebuild and it fails, what does that mean, right? But I think I will want to come back to this point where, I love this poem, and it's something that has always encouraged me along the way on my entrepreneurship journey, and it's Risk by William Arthur Ward. I quote it a lot because, I really love it. I'm probably butchering the poem, but it goes something like, to love is to risk not being loved in return. Okay. To hope is to risk despair. Okay. To try is to risk failure. Right? But if you don't risk, then the person who does not risk, does nothing, is nothing, has nothing. He might avoid suffering and sorrow, but he also cannot live, cannot learn, cannot grow.
There's no gain at all.
There's no gain. So this poem has always encouraged me. It's a way longer poem. I'm just butchering it.
So to the audience out there, right? Do look up for this poem, right? It might be inspiring to you as well.
Yes. And I love it because it always reminds me to have the courage to take risks. And yes, sometimes risk can be very daunting, but then I think as leaders, we need to have the courage to make difficult decisions and to also encourage our company. So that trait that I was looking out for, that I was telling you what culture do you build within your organization can determine how well you can, be resilient during difficult times, right? And that is the thing that I was really looking out for is that my team were able to embrace risks, were able to adjust to change, and the ability to also fail.
Right.
I also needed them to know that if we fail, it's okay. We can try again, right? And that requires a culture that has a lot of psychological safety.
Yes, it
and
is.
that's very solution focused, right? It's not about, hey, we failed. Whose fault is it, right? It's, hey, we failed. What is the lesson to be learned here? Yeah.
So I'm very curious on that aspect. I'm definitely going to ask you about that later on, right? But now go back to you yourself. Because I'm curious, when we talk about the team and all, what about you? During times like that, how do you cope with the emotional, the psychological factors?
Yeah, very stressful. I think this question I often get asked as an entrepreneur and also as a mom of two young boys, right? So I have a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old son at home. I had a very productive COVID. I gave birth. I really feel like it was one after another.
I think it's a good time, right? If not then, I'm unsure you have a time to have more kids then.
True. I actually received advice from a female founder. So she's a very successful female entrepreneur, one of the pioneers in the Singapore scene, and she has 4 kids.
Wow.
Yeah, 4 kids throughout her entrepreneurship journey. All boys. I have 2 boys. So I think 2 things that is very important to me. I think in the early days, I was always struggling to strike a balance, right? Especially when you still did not have kids. So I think the entrepreneurship journey in the last 8-9 years saw me getting married, having kids. But before I got married, right? Just go ahead, just charge ahead, you know. It doesn't matter that I'm working overtime. I feel like, the world is my oyster. I can do whatever I want.
Yes.
No family obligations, so on and so forth. And then I got married. And then when I got married, I felt that it gave me even more energy, right? Because, now I have someone that is always encouraging me, supporting me. The emotional side of me is taken care of. That all the more I can charge for it. And then I had kids. Wow, game changer. So with kids, I think the demanding part is actually your time and your mental energy, right? And I fundamentally believe that there are 2 things that I need to get right for me to do well in my job. The first is I need to have enough sleep.
Right.
So I do prioritize my sleep, because if I don't sleep enough and I'm not well rested,
you can't fight another day.
No, yes. And
so what's the minimum hour of sleep you look for?
Okay, I'm terrible. I need at least like 7 or 8 hours.
That's not too bad.
Yeah, if not, I cannot.
That's the doctor recommended hours of sleep.
Correct. Yeah. I've tested it. If I don't sleep enough, I'm just not as sharp. Yeah. I can force myself through things, but your company don't need you like at 50%, you know. They need you to be performing at 100% all the time. Right? And something that I also realized is that I think entrepreneurship, you can fall trapped into that very false belief that the more I work, the more I sacrifice, the better the entrepreneur I am, right? Well, as a founder, I sleep on the mattress in the office and all that. I think all these are very wrong thinking. Actually, your company don't need you to be in the office and to be working 100% of the time. What they do need is when you are working and when you're in meetings and when you're making decisions, you're at tip-top condition.
Right.
And you're 100% performing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think one of the hacks that I've did this year, I think it's a game changer, is at the start of the year, I would already schedule a 1-week break at the end of every quarter.
Oh, wow. And that's family time.
Family time, and I deliberately book all my flights.
Right.
Yeah. So at December last year, my husband was shocked at my credit card bill because I just like, bye. All the etiquettes. But the reason why I did that was that there was a point in time where I was so burnt out. I was just not making good decisions. Your whole vibe around you, right? It's just wrong.
Yeah.
You go to the office, you're not setting the right tone. People needed encouragement from you, but you just had no mind space whatsoever. One of my staff actually said this to me once, like, as founder, we always look to you to inspire us. So you have that responsibility to also be inspiring.
Yes. Because they look up to you when you're a leader.
Yeah. So, but when you're not performing and when you're not, your cup is not filled.
Yeah.
Can you be inspiring? I think cannot lah.
It's tough.
So at that point, there was a point where I was so burnt out that thankfully I had pre-booked a trip, right? And that trip was to Perth, Australia. And then that trip was... Recharged. It was like 7 days, but then, and I brought my kids along. And the first 3 days, I was still thinking about work, mentally thinking about work, trying to answer emails and all that. But by the 4th day, you start to switch, right? Okay, I want to take a break, maybe start enjoying my holiday a little bit. And by the time I got back, and it was just a short trip, I was just away for a week.
Yeah.
But by the time I got back, I was recharged. I made a lot better decision. I moved a lot faster. I have a lot more clarity in my decision-making process.
Yeah.
So I think the hack that I did this year was I pre-booked. So I know that every quarter I take myself away for a week, I will always come back a better founder.
Yeah.
Right? It's much better. And if I don't pre-book it, I know I'll just like, hey, I got no time, I forget it. I'll just next quarter that I go. And then next quarter that I go, right? This is usually what happens.
But now I'm very curious because you mentioned it every quarter, right? But how do you really juggle your work-life balance because you have kids?
Yeah.
Right? You have a husband. Okay, I mean husband, he will be the one supporting you most of the time.
Yeah.
But with the kids around, how do you manage your time?
First I accept help. I'm very, very pragmatic about it, right? People want to help me, I just say, yes, please, thank you very much, thank you. The second thing I do is that I draw very clear boundaries, which means that when I'm with my kids, I really try to be with my kids, right? I prioritize quality over quantity. Yeah. And something that there was another podcast I did, I recently talked about it as well. I don't dwell in mom guilt, right? Just this week, I was sending my son to the lobby to take his school bus, right? And I received a work call. So I took the work call. And because I was distracted by the work call, my son fell into the water feature at my condo lobby and he's all wet lah. So he had to miss.
He went for a swim lah.
He went for a swim. He was all drenched. And I mean, thankfully it's not a pool or anything, right? That I didn't have to jump in to save him. It's just like a shallow water feature. But then I had to pull him out and then I had to get him changed and all that. But you know, there are moments like this, it's like, you have the tendency to blame yourself that, because I took this work call, then this happened, right? Or I can just move on and like, okay, let me just now get you changed and send you to school.
Just deal with the problem straight.
Yeah. I don't like dwelling in mom guilt because I think it's a very unproductive feeling to have.
Okay.
So every time I feel it, I'll just think about, okay, is there anything I can do better? Right? Maybe this weekend, let me spend more time with my kids, right? If there's anything that I feel like I'm falling behind, how about next week? Can I take a day off? Right? And spend more time with my children. The other thing that I think I'm very privileged to have is I prioritize my marriage. Right? I make sure that me and my husband will always have a very good relationship. Because the last thing I need is to waste mental energy.
Fight
him also. Yeah. And I mean, there's this very old saying that behind every successful man is a woman or something.
Supportive woman.
Yeah, let's just remove the gender,
sides,
right? Yeah, it's both sides. So I mean, beyond my kids, I also prioritize my marriage. I always make sure that my husband and I are always connected. We understand each other. We talk about things. Our marriage is solid and secure. If there's anything that he's unhappy about, he knows he can always talk to me about it and we'll talk it out. And I think that really helps because what this means is that not only are we able to enable each other's career, but we also play an equal part at home. He's a very hands-on father and he knows that's what I expect of him. But likewise, he expects that of me, right? That when I'm with the kids, he will remind me to put my phone away. When I'm on holiday with my children, he'll be like, okay, it's time for you to put your phone away. Right? And the mutual respect goes both ways. So when he says something like this, then I do it. Right? And not like, oh, who are you to tell me what to do? So I don't do that, right? I'll be like, okay, yeah, you're right. Let me do that. So
it's a compromise within a marriage.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it's easy at all, but I think making sure that your home front is, the relationships at your home front, it's going well, helps a lot.
Well, I think whatever that's stable there, it helps in your career and all. You don't have to think about back end, the front will be stable.
Yes, exactly. And I think because work-life integration is a thing now, right?
Yes,
you can't separate them. If there's anything negative that's going on at home, it definitely will affect the work. So making sure that everything is good at home front just enables me to do even more work.
So when you're having that conversations and all, I caught a few things. Right? First one was that, your team is looking for you for inspiration and all. Would you say that, being an entrepreneur, a founder, it's a very lonely journey?
Yes, sometimes it's very lonely. But I think the loneliness comes from the fact that you don't get any recognition. Or, okay, you can't say that. You don't get as much recognition. Right? So the thing is, I think we are always expected to recognize good work done, right? As managers, we are like, oh, let me recognize you. Let me take you out for dinner. Let me give you a good pat on the back.
But as a founder, nobody will give you a good pat.
No, yeah. But then if things go wrong, your fault, right? Like, hey, why did you make that decision? Why weren't you there for us? Or, I think it's very easy in any role that we're in to very commonly blame ours, as boss's faults. So from that aspect, sometimes it gets a bit lonely because not only do we have to solve the hardest problems, but even when we solve it, we are expected to do it.
Right.
So no recognition because that's your job, right? But when things fail, it's all
also your responsibility,
fault, right? It's all your fault. So sometimes a little bit, and I think that's where I really appreciate having a co-founder because then we share that journey together. I have a lot of respect for solo founders because that's even harder, right?
Yeah.
Tank it all. So having a co-founder actually on that journey helps. The other thing I also like to do is just having like a community of entrepreneurs that I connect with regularly, especially female entrepreneurs, right? So I do meet up with other, especially mom entrepreneurs, right?
Wow.
Fellow entrepreneurs who are also mothers, and we often share our journey. And in a lot of ways, I also provide guidance to new entrepreneurs who are also becoming mothers, right?
That's the reason why we actually invited you in this podcast because this is for inspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. So, yes, it can be quite lonely, but then it's also extremely rewarding, right?
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, it's extremely rewarding, even at very stressful times. And there are many times where I'm like, why am I doing this? I could have maybe just gone out there and took a corporate job and just, be very cushy.
So that's it, right? That's what you mentioned as well, I accept help.
Yes.
Right? Why so? And actually, how do you actually deal with it? Because I think most entrepreneurs or founders say that I don't need help, since I'm making a decision, right, I should be telling you what to do. And you mentioned, on the other hand, is I accept help.
Yeah. No way, man. I cannot do it on my own. Yeah. There are a lot of ways that I seek for help. One is on the home front, the grandparents, please, yes, thank you. Please come, yes, thank you. On the work front, I'm always, this is one thing that I've not stopped doing from the start till now is always getting other people's advice. Right. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Oh, the power of coffee, right? And the good thing is every cup of coffee you buy always opens up another 2 or 3 doors.
Right.
And even if they don't, it's just a cup of coffee. It's like, it's not going to cost much.
You never know when the opportunity will present to you.
Exactly. And I think I think maybe this is a bit of my style. I always like to, any acquaintance or any connection that I built through this journey, somehow a lot of them always eventually become a friend.
Right.
Right. And through the friendship, then it's not just advice they give you, then it kind of crosses into the personal side where there's a lot of encouragement, a bit of mentorship. There are very senior leaders who, started out as maybe a prospect, right? Like potential customer that then evolved into like a formal mentor, that evolved into like a friend, to now it's like almost like a life coach, right? Always reminding me to take care of my health, asking me very challenging questions.
Making you think.
Really making me think. People that I can pick up the phone and, do you have 5 minutes? Can I ask you a quick question on this decision I need to make at work? And they are readily available to you. The one thing that I really believe in, right, is the smartest thing you can do is to be the stupidest person in the room.
Right. And you just keep asking for advice.
Yeah. Don't assume you know anything, right? Even in a room where you might think you know more, keep quiet and see what other people have to say, right? Be open to absorb ideas and be open to advice. And these are things that I look out for in people that I hire also. Whether or not they have that ability and that emotional intelligence to accept other people's idea and to accept that their version of truth can be challenged.
Right.
Or their version of what is right and what is correct can be wrong, right? Having that maturity to be open to it is very important to me. Yeah.
Right, that's it. On a personal note, right? During your whole entrepreneurship journey, any point in time, right, you thought that you wanted to give up?
Yes, many times. I think one of the biggest challenge I faced was that the stress can get so intense, it can affect your health. Yeah. So one of the biggest moments that I felt like I probably made a very big mistake was when I was pregnant with my second kid.
All right.
I was like, it was a Saturday morning and I went in for my checkup. I was by the way, 38.5 weeks pregnant. So
Wow,
late,
that's quite late. Yeah.
Late. And okay, to skip the gruesome details, basically my gynecologist said, oh, you know what? You need to go and pack out your bags and get warded. You're basically in early labor. I was like, oh, I cannot. I have a 2 p.m. meeting. I have to go for.
You told it to your gynae?
Yeah, so I was like, I will call you later. Let me go for the meeting first. So I lucked my big belly and went to pitch and all that. And lo and behold, I basically went into labor the next couple of days.
Right.
And I think it's a big mistake because I did not allow myself to switch off. Right? I did not allow myself, okay, this is draw that boundary that I just told you, right?
Yes.
That this is the time that I need to focus on myself. This is a big thing. Giving birth is not, going to walk around the park, right? It's a big thing.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was that the entire time that I was in labor, even after that, where it's all very intense, I was thinking about work. I was thinking about all the meetings that I've had. I was thinking about all the things I needed to do. And what ended up happening is that it all got very intense for me, like mentally, physically, all very draining. Again, during that early stage of childbirth, you also don't have sleep, right? Because the baby is very demanding. So I guess that made things worse. But I end up getting diagnosed with Graves' disease, which is a form of hyperthyroidism, which took me, I actually just stopped the medication. So it took me about two and a half years to basically medicate to improve on it. And it was a very clear sign back then to me. It's like, what am I doing? I'm not drawing my boundaries right. Yeah. And that was a moment where I was very close to like, is this what I want? Like, is this entrepreneurship journey right for me?
Right.
But then I realized that it's less about the entrepreneurship journey because every single career choice I pick, if I don't draw the boundary well,
it was going to be a safe.
I can get there.
Yeah.
Right? This is a situation where I allowed myself to overdo it.
Yeah.
Right? And when I look back, did I win that pitch that I did when I was, I ignored my gynae's advice and I didn't win it. So the outcome is also not what I wanted, right? So I wasn't effective in what I was doing, but instead I affected my health, right? And throughout this entrepreneurial journey, there were many like little episodes like this where my health was on the line, breaking out hives, getting sick so often. And it's always moments like that I need to recalibrate. Right? What am I doing here? So I'm very grateful that actually 2 years ago, I was given this book by, it's called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia. Have you heard of him?
No, I'm not. But after this, I'm going to find it out, man. For the audience out there, good to know as well.
Yes. So that book is a game changer for me because Dr. Peter Attia essentially is a world-renowned expert in longevity. So he talks about health span, not lifespan, right? It's not about how long you live.
It's about how healthy you are.
How long you live as a healthy person. Right? So he kind of dictate, not just your diet, but your exercise and so on and so forth. So since last year, there's a few habits that have changed in my life, right? So one is basically I drink less. So I really love wine, right? Wine is like one of my thing.
Wind down.
Yeah, wind down, right? But I have reduced that because that affects sleep. Yes, alcohol affects sleep. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
By the way, alcohol also spikes your cortisol level. Why when you drink at the end of the day, you feel relieved is because then it temporarily reduces it. But in the absence of alcohol, it spikes it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one. And then exercise, right? Your zone 2 exercise, your strength training and all that. Yeah. So I think that book actually really changed a few life habits for me that help me now better cope with stress and the demands that you're talking about, the work and the family. Just incorporating 30 minutes actually now gives me a lot more energy than I used to have when I wasn't exercising as much.
I see. Yeah. So we talk a lot about, getting help. We talk about you readings and change your lifestyle and all. Now, I'm very curious. What about mentorship? Is it important?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But see, the thing is, I don't seek out like formal mentors. Right. I just have like a lot of people that I say, you're a mentor to me. Right? Remember some of those, people in leadership positions that, however they came, right? Either as a prospect or as an investor or whatever it is, that ultimately also became a friend to me.
Yeah.
I'm someone who is, who actually thrive in personal relationship.
Okay.
Right? When it's very professional, I find it actually harder for me to
ask questions.
Yeah, right? But the minute I can switch it into more of a personal relationship, then I will feel a lot more comfortable.
Right.
Do you mind if I actually ask you this question, that question? And I think the thing about entrepreneurs, one trait that I think we all must have is thick skin lah, So
Must
just ask, yeah. So just ask. And I think along the way in this entrepreneurship journey, there are people who have inspired me in many different ways, right? They are the informal mentors who, because of who they are and what they represent, the values that they have, how worldly they are. Like, for example, I have this investor who is super into Gen AI and he's very futuristic. He asked me questions like, what do you think your job will be if you lived in space? And I was like, oh, that's a very interesting question. Like, he's that kind of person who is very future oriented.
Right.
Every time I meet him, have a meal with him, I get very inspired into what the future could be like, right? And he challenges my thinking in terms of innovation and advancement in technology. And then there are other people that I will actually reach out to for specific questions. See, the thing about mentorship, sometimes when I'm a mentor myself to other people, I will also ask them, actually, what are you trying to achieve here, right? Do you just want me to share my story to inspire you, or do you actually have a specific challenge that you're facing I can help resolve?
They can help give you a little solution.
Correct. Yeah.
Little advice.
Yes. Yeah. So I think for me in this journey, I like to think of mentor in like these two buckets, right?
Okay.
People who I respect a lot, that inspires me a lot, which includes people like Oprah, right? People like that, who, wow, I'm very inspired just because of what they represent. And then people that I know I will reach out to for specific questions.
Right.
Yeah.
So now that we are to this stage, right, I'm very curious because we talk about a lot of things about your team, right? So we talk about mentorship. Now we talk about your team, right?
Yes.
Downwards, right?
Yes.
And you mentioned that there's a few key qualities that you look for, right, when you hire these people. What are those again, and why? Yeah,
I think it took me a while to realize what the type of people that I, really enjoy working with, that I see thrive in EngageRocket, and that I have a lot of confidence in their potential. So the first one is really the first key thing I look out for is value alignment. Right? Does this person's personal value align with the company's value and what we represent? Right? Is this person a culture fit? Right. The value alignment is important because in very challenging times, in very difficult and stressful period, which by the way happens a lot, right, with startups because of the pace that we move at. How will this person behave? Right? Values ultimately determines the kind of behavior, the desired behavior that we will exhibit at work. It's during difficult times that you see people's true colors, so to speak, right? So first is really, is this person personal value, what matters to this person, aligned with the kind of company culture we want to build? Is this person personally interested and is aligned with the vision of EngageRocket?
Right.
Is he interested in solving this problem that we're trying to solve, in creating better workplaces for, employees, right? So the first thing I look out for is this. And the way we do it is that there is always a round in the interview process called the culture fit round, where all we do is not assess the person's experience, the person's skill set, case study, none of that.
So it's the one that sit down and have a coffee,
Literally that, right? We will pick a few people from different departments in our company and different tenure also, people who joined for a long time, not so long. And all they do is chit-chat with the person, get to know this person better. And at the end, let us know whether or not this person, they feel he's a culture fit. Things that matters to him, it's, aligns with what matters to all of us. So I think the first one is value alignment, which is important to me. And I've made mistakes, right? Hiring people who are not aligned. And it was very obvious when, crunch time, they just did not have the behaviors that I would ideally want to see. The second one is emotional intelligence that I told you about. So because the company is not big, everyone is expected to be a leader. That's the expectation I set. Like, don't join us if you think that you can just chill, lay back, follow instructions, right? Like, one of the key things to me is I really is important. It's important to me that people join EngageRocket and leave as a better professional.
Right.
And I think I can only do that and help you grow professionally if you take charge of your own development as well. And that requires leadership.
Right.
And I think today, to be a very good leader, you need very high emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And what that means to me is having high degree of self-awareness, right? I know where my strengths is. I know where my weaknesses are. That's why I'm open to other people's feedback.
Right.
I have the ability to influence. And the way I influence is not you do what I tell you to do, but let me tell you and convince you why I think this way could be better, but at the same time, incorporate your feedback as well. It's also having empathy, right? And having the ability to understand first before being understood. So a lot of times I think you see people, they just keep telling you things because they want to be understood.
That's
But
right.
I think true leaders with high emotional intelligence seek to understand first. Let me understand from your perspective first. And then I tell
Make a
you.
decision.
Yes, and then I tell you where my standpoint lies in. And the last thing I would say, the last trait I look out for is learning agility. Alvin Toffler, he's a futurist.
Okay.
I think he's also an author. He once said that the illiterates of the 21st century isn't those who cannot read or write. The illiterates of the 21st century are those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Right.
So the ability to learn is very important to me, right? Especially because we are a tech company and we are a fast-moving company. I expect everybody to, have a curiosity, that innate curiosity to
Yes.
experiment, to try out new ideas. And that's where the ability to fail comes in again, right? If I don't have the courage to fail,
Right.
then I won't have the courage to experiment. So at EngageRocket, we always try to encourage people to just try, right? And if you don't succeed, come back with lesson.
Right.
And you know what? Come back with lesson and share it with everybody else,
So that everybody can learn the same thing.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because this is not about you failing. This is about you having the courage and the initiative to try something new and educating everybody else what you have learned.
Right.
So it's a shift of mindset here, but I think that's very powerful because that creates the psychological safety
Right.
and the kind of culture that will enable more innovation to happen.
Yeah. So that's it, right? The same set of qualities, will you say that is the same fit for entrepreneurs as well, or there are more for entrepreneurs?
Pretty much the same. I think any role, right? I mean, entrepreneur or not entrepreneur, the learning agility, emotional intelligence, that makes you a good leader.
Right.
Because as entrepreneur, at some point, you have to be a leader, right? And having that maturity to be open-minded is very important. And I think the other one is all these things ultimately also adds to resilience, which is so important in entrepreneurship, right? You need to have the resilience to bounce back, right? What is resilience to me is not just having optimism, grounded optimism, not like, pure delusional optimism, like, yeah, everything's good and bright and cherry, right? But having, okay, you know what? Generally, I am positive about things, which
Right.
motivates me to always want to try things, right? The second one is also having the ability to bounce back quickly.
Yeah.
Right? And that requires that learning agility that I talked about. Yeah. So I think as entrepreneurs, it's very important to, these traits apply to entrepreneurs, but also for entrepreneurs, it's also having the courage to take risk, which is exactly the poem that I talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's next for EngageRocket?
Oh, so many things. Medium term, long term. I think what is important for us is that our vision and mission has not changed since day one.
Okay.
I think something that warms my heart is the vision of, or the mission of wanting to create better workplaces with people analytics, of wanting to create a better life. I think this problem means a lot to not just me, my co-founder, but everybody that works for EngageRocket, because it's not just about helping organizations succeed through its people, right? If you motivate your people better, they become a driving force for success for you. It's not just that. But because work and life are so integrated today, and we spend most of our waking hours at work. If we don't enjoy work, if we're not motivated at work, if we are
You'll never be able to give your best.
we'll never live our best life.
Yeah.
And one part that is so true is also if we are very disgruntled and disengaged at work, we bring it home as well, right? So there is the business side that motivates me. I'm helping companies succeed through people, which is, by the way, often the most expensive asset.
Yep.
But on the other side is also there's that well-being side, right? There's that humanitarian side that we are also changing lives here, right? By improving the workplace for them and hopefully creating a positive change to something that potentially can be very negative for them in their lives. So I think this two-part, it's important and remains true to be the mission of EngageRocket, and it will not change in the future. I think everything that we do will still come back to this point. But more concretely, hopefully we'll be able to do that in more and more organizations and in more countries.
That's awesome to hear, right? In all our podcasts and all our stories here that we hear from entrepreneurs, right, we always ask all our guests here one word, right? What's that one word you give our aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
I would say courage.
Courage. Why?
Yes. Because taking risks takes courage.
Right.
Accepting failure takes courage. Hiring people, right? Asking people for money. Asking people to give you a chance. Take courage. Asking for mentors. Take courage, right? Accepting that you are inadequate and you're not enough and there are areas that you need to change takes courage.
Yeah.
I think this journey, if there's anything that is constant, is change and it's growth, right? I think every day I find myself in this uncomfortable situation or in areas that I feel is daunting, or I have to make decision that is tough.
Right.
All that takes courage.
Yeah.
So if there's a word that I'll give budding entrepreneurs, it's probably have courage. Yeah.
Right. So, Dorothy, before we end off today's podcast, right, I would like you to look at this camera over here, right, and give any parting message, any encouragement you'd like for our audience out there.
So I read a book previously. It's the Almanac by Naval Ravikant, and he talks about the fact that we often chase wealth, health, and happiness in that order, but the importance is in the reverse. And he defined happiness as being at peace in motion. I'm on my 8th year of this entrepreneurship journey, and I think it has took me a while to actually be at peace at the constant discomfort that I'm feeling. And finally, I think today I am actually happy to say that I am at peace because I acknowledge that every day I'm actually growing and learning, and this comfort is the assurance that I have that I'm always trying to better myself. So this is something that I'll encourage all the listeners or all the budding entrepreneurs out there, that happiness is actually the most important, and that comes with being at peace at the situation you're in, followed by health. Don't neglect your health, and then comes the wealth.
Thank you once again very much, Dorothy, for your time and for providing such valuable insights. Your experience and advice are sure to inspire many young entrepreneurs who are navigating their own path to success. To our listeners out there, we hope you found today's episode enlightening and motivating as we did. If you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Me-ssion Ignite and leave us a review. Share this episode with anyone you think that might benefit from Dorothy's stories and insights. Stay tuned for more inspiring interviews with remarkable entrepreneurs. Until next time, keep dreaming big, working hard, and staying inspired. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you soon in the next episode. Hi guys, thank you for listening. If you like what you have just heard, follow us for more content like this.